Hello, everyone. This is the seventh Guild Community Stand-up event that we are hosting, and this time we are having the Zerion team on stage. This call is basically about showcasing our guests' products, our guests' teams and communities, and learning from them how they are managing their communities, what kind of tools, ways they have to community management. And also we do want to know, everything that you guys are working on. I just want to say it in advance. This call is being recorded and it will be uploaded on YouTube. And there's one more important changes, some updates that I would like to share with the audience before we get started. So as of this week, we are introducing monetization for our POAPs on the community events. So starting today, our POAPs will be available for purchase at the cost of 1.95 USDC, and it can be bought by anyone interested in collecting them. We'll keep everyone informed and provide more information at a later time. So today's guest is the Zerion team. Thank you so much for being here with me. Let's get started. I do want to ask you to introduce yourself real quick. So tell me about yourself in short and tell me about the team.
Thanks for the intro, Hannah. I'll also let Gleb introduce himself, but we are part of the same team. We essentially are the community and API team at Zerion. And Zerion, for those who don't know, has, I guess been around in the space since early 2017, actually. We first started out building out smart contracts for platforms like, Nexo and Waves, like some of these CD5 platforms that you see today. And then we released what we'd consider our first ever retail product, the portfolio tracking tool. This was back in 2019 when you only had a few DeFi protocols around in the space. So these were Uniswap, Compound, Maker, or whatnot. So it's really just a simple interface to connect your Ethereum wallet and track all your assets across all your accounts. And then more recently, we've evolved to be this smart Web3 wallet ourselves. Essentially, anyone can manage their DeFi and NFT portfolios within our mobile and web apps, and our design language is so focused such that it's quite easy for you as an active Web3 citizen to do your trades, send assets, track all your wallets, not just Zerion wallets, but also connect your MetaMask ledgers or whatnot. So it's been really fun for me personally growing the community, and now even focusing on our B2B side, selling this API that we've built internally to other wallets like Rainbow Wallet or whatnot to help them sort of build their platforms as well. Gleb, over to you.
Thanks, Abby. I think the intro was perfect. I don't really have much to add. We do indeed work on the API and making sure that our several side of things is growing. We've just released our updated API a couple of days ago. What I personally do, I'm Zerion's community manager, and I chat to people all day long on Discord, trying to make sure that everyone gets all the latest info. We also have our community events, and just basically, I personally try to contribute as much as I can. And happy to be here. Looking forward to the call.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I already saw it on Twitter that you just released the Zerion Wallet at the end of May. So big congrats to you guys. This is really impressive. How you are managing it and how you just released your API alpha a few days ago. So this is amazing. Thank you so much for your answer. Let's get into a bit into Zerion. What is the main purpose and background of not only Zerion, but also about the community? Because you said, Gleb, you are managing the community on Discord and you are, spending your time with them. What is the purpose behind all the people?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think that Web3 is really a very community-focused industry. So when you build something in Web3, it's not just about the product. It's not just about making, say, the best wallet in the ecosystem, and that's what we're trying to do. It's also about having a community behind it, because you need people who are going to use it. You need people who are going to onboard new people, because if we want Web3 and crypto to go truly mainstream, we need that. We can't just do everything ourselves. So, and that's why I think, it's important to foster community and foster a sense of community. And Discord is just really, I don't know why that happened, but Discord seems to be the platform of choice for most Web3 communities, if not all. So it was, very logical for us to go with it as well. But I just try to, I see it as a way to grow the industry as well. So it's not just about, promoting the wallet or making sure that we onboard more people, but it's also about educating people, helping people find a way to interact with crypto, with their NFTs and other assets. It's really just about, having a good time and also having a meaningful time. So that's how I see it.
And how did it form in the very beginning? Like, was it like you had the community and then you were working on the product in the meantime, or was it first Zerion as a project and like gathering the community around? If it makes sense, my question.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I can jump on this. So essentially, picture this, right? It's early, like kind of 2020 before the pandemic. Zerion as a platform, we only had about 2,000 monthly active users then, and it was pretty much everyone in the space who had anything to do with DeFi. What we realized is we had like a very early Telegram group where we just coordinate a lot of these internal stakeholders, and what kind of was missing in the space was, I think there were a few platforms like Synthetics or Uniswap that really first started to like coordinate their communities around Discords. So I essentially just created a Discord like really quick. Essentially put out some announcements on Twitter, and I mean back then I also started our Twitter, which was again a very very small kind of non-personal initiative where we just share like product updates. So essentially, how could we, compile what we did on the in-app chat, like that would, directly let you talk to one of our community managers, our sort of, Twitter or external-facing community, and then our, sort of friends of friends. These would be VCs or other teams. So our initial community really just started out with how do we bring all of them together under one roof, where we not just share updates, but also now we, organize them in a better way. So some of the earlier team members or like the friends got like Zerion OG roles. So that would mean they'd get, to also have access to our beta channel where you could get like, early access to like product updates. A lot of, I remember like the early feedback around like, hey, Zerion should release a dark mode or whatnot just came out from like a lot of these, more organic conversations. So I think that's how it started. But then Gleb has definitely taken it to the next level. So I can, sort of transition that period over to him. And this is the period when I guess we've, started implementing more community engagement initiatives, building out our treasury or whatnot. Gleb, yeah, I definitely think you deserve to like talk about a lot of those initiatives that you've been working on.
Thank you for the kind words, Avi. I'd say a large part of our community efforts is centered around making community happy and making the community happy, making the community engaged. So, like Guild, for example, we love using Guild for distributing our apps and just we also use some other tools to make sure that people don't just join the server and talk about stuff, but to make sure that people like also have something fun to do. So I'd say our main goal is to educate people, help them maybe find their tribe, help them find friends, or just help them find a place where they can come and say hi from time to time if they feel like it. But we definitely are aiming to sort of make our server a bit more sophisticated in a way. So it will still obviously be very friendly to newcomers, but then we also want to sort of power up people's experiences. So we don't want people to just, come and see the same thing all the time. It's about evolving. It's about bringing in new tools and new fun things to, get involved with. Just like our ambassador program, for example, will be rolling it out relatively soon. So I'm personally very looking forward to that. Yeah, I mean, it's really all about what the community wants and what we can bring to the community to make sure that people are happy and that people can also grow along with the server and along with their friends in it.
This is pretty impressive. So basically, your whole community started out as a Telegram group.
Yeah, essentially, it was just friends, whoever knew about Zerion. Yeah.
That's crazy, actually. I mean, I'm really, really, like on the side that's saying like organic growth is the best. And as you said, like-minded people were gathering around, and there were like more and more of them. Like she is a friend of a friend and something like this. I checked your Discord and I can say that like it's pretty, structured now, and there are so many opportunities you have. Basically, I saw you are distributing the POAPs on the Zerion call and all these things, and I had the opportunity to be part of a call, of a community call. So I have some experience about it. You mentioned something about a new kind of event or a course. It was like in investors or something like this club, right? That you're looking for.
Oh no, I was thinking about our ambassador program. So we want to pick out some of the most active users and then give them a chance to maybe spread the word about Zero in an organized way. Give them some means to onboarding new people in a more streamlined way. We basically want those who love the community to be able to share that love and passion and also help us grow in the process.
Awesome. And what is your secret actually? Because you mentioned education a lot. Like, what do you think is the best approach to educate the community? Especially if you have a lot of developer and non-technical in your community, as I saw it. So, what's your secret?
I mean, I can add my 2 cents on what I've seen or at least observed. It's definitely very been like these nurturing these personal relationships such that like the goal for any community at the end of the day to scale is to like make it such that people make friends in the community at the end of the day, or you get value beyond just getting support questions answered or whatnot. I feel like that's been the goal, but definitely the secret sauce has been collab's sort of hard work behind the scenes. I see messages here in the stage chat just talking about how hey, here's the infamous club. So it definitely goes to show, right? Like it's a lot of like nurturing these personal relationships, not making it very like you don't have a CRM or you don't have some sort of a system to like keep track of everything at the end of the day, where it's almost like you dedicate your time and effort to like trying to help people out whatever they want.
Thanks, Abby. And yeah, I mean, I also wanted to add that I think the app really helps us a lot as well. Because if you take like a random app or random product in Web3 and it's very confusing, it's very hard to see people being interested in that and being interested in exploring it. But Zerion is really the opposite of that. Zerion is very intuitive. So if you open the app, for example, for the first time, you'll see some pop-ups if you want to create a wallet. You'll also see a very clear but also a very detailed walkthrough of what's going to happen if you tap on this or on that thing. So it's almost the app has this feeling to it. Like it's very smooth, it's very streamlined, it's very easy to use, and people learn a lot in the process, at least about what their actions mean. And like I think we're trying to bring that back to the community as well. So like the same feeling you get when you use the app, you also get it when you say join our events or you just chat to us. You know that we got our stuff together, and you know that you can get whatever info you need. Like that's the approach.
This is a really great approach, actually. I like how you were emphasizing making the connection and creating the space for them to have the engagement, have the connection within them and between them. My next question is a little bit related to having the connections in the community, and I'm really curious about like how the community is actually connected with your team. Since you have the Zerion wallet, since you are rolling out your APIs and all these things, I'm really curious about like how like do you handle the community feedback, and what kind of feedback do you receive from the community? Like, do you have a space for it or anything like this where they can share their thoughts?
Yeah, I can add my 2 cents here. Initially, we built out this roadmap board publicly. So the problem to solve here is oftentimes feedback is very chaotic, right? Like you have a lot of different information from a lot of different places, but you don't know, how valuable this information is because you as a product might have a certain user persona you want to focus on. To say Zerion, we define our user persona now as active citizens. these active citizens, there's maybe like 100,000 of them in the entire space. They're the ones who are contributing to most trading volumes, or most, I guess, alpha, or like most sort of teams being founded at the end of the day. But before our active sort of citizen persona existed, it was a very broad persona. So what we did there to really solve a lot of this was like, let's have a place where people can, aggregate feedback and see what the team's working on publicly. So this was basically roadmap.zerion.io. That's one channel, and more recently, it's been less helpful for the product just because there's so many features that we're working on. It's hard to keep track of it in one place. But it's been more useful for our API, for example, where there's a smaller set of like paying customers who might be more interested in just adding comments or adding feature requests. So that's one method. I think the other method has been very much having a separate channel called suggestions, where we're periodically with our product team internally. I think that's one of those things I really love about working at Zerion. Like, we don't feel like we're a community team. We rather feel like we're like a kind of like a product team with our own ownership goals. So be it with the treasury, be it with any other initiatives we do ourselves, we kind of obviously discuss that internally, but it's almost like a flat hierarchy. So it's almost like a negotiation process where we're able to take a lot of these suggestions. Gleb, very beautifully compiles a lot of them, in a separate Notion page, or internally in our own sort of tooling, to make sure that the rest of the team is aware on what's the most sort of on top of our community's mind. And then there's obviously the sort of support element of it, where we'll have trends on like what sort of support requests are most users asking on a certain week, and how does that impact our end user metrics, which would usually be weekly active funded wallets, or sort of something around that. Because our goal is to make sure that, hey, like, the wallet space is great. How do we differentiate ourselves from other Web3 wallets available? A big part of that is being very community focused and being almost like personable, where people know the rest of the team and appreciate the fact that we're just open to like collaborating with the community. Because, to be honest, now in this market, or in any other market for that matter, like, I think you have to really like keep evolving your product according to how the community and how like the general market is. And that's where I think Gleb and Nawal and me, we bring in a lot of the value to the team, sort of communicating what is on top of sort of the latest trends and our community.
Wow, building publicly with the community in mind is really appreciable. I know that from a personal experience. Community members do love to know about like what is going on in the back, like what the team is working on. Because even if, there's not an opportunity in that moment to contribute, they do love to share their thoughts on it. Maybe they have like a good vision or so. And for example, what we just experienced with our guild is that people do love to feel, involved in these different kind of like developments and all these things. You mentioned active citizens, who takes a big part in creating and building and all these things. And I'm really curious about your community. Like, how's the ratio in your community? Because I know that you have a lot of developers. You have different sections on your Discord where developers can talk and all these things. But how are you getting the non-technical part of your community engaged and included? Like, how many are there? What do you think?
That's a great question and great point. I personally feel like our non-tech part is way larger than our tech part. So like we have like 40,000 people, and I would say a few thousand of them are definitely devs, but most people aren't. Most people are, like at these different stages of exploring Web3. There are some, active citizens. There are some people who are just, trying to see what the whole thing is about. And I think like the main goal that we are trying to achieve is like having that sense of openness and having that welcoming atmosphere where people can share all sorts of questions. Sometimes those aren't even about Zerion, for example. Sometimes we want to learn more about Web3, or some Web3 specific concepts, and we'll definitely try to help if we can. So it's just really all about letting people speak and kind of like giving them that space to to like share their concerns, ideas, feedback, and whatnot. Because we do have different channels, right? But if someone sends a message in like to a slightly wrong channel, it's okay. We'll just like not something for the future, but we'll still process the request, we'll help them out, we'll make sure that their question is answered. So it's really all also community driven. So we don't really have any practices that make people speak up or that make people share their feedback. It's I think it all comes from people being comfortable in the community and like being involved, and then as a consequence of that, being also quite open when it comes to sharing their feedback. And we are definitely more than willing to look into it and try to improve based on that as well.
Amazing. It sounds really good to hear your thoughts on getting them involved and having the safe space for them to, share their thoughts and all these things. Moving on to my next question or the next topic I want to touch on are more about your future plans, because I know that like you're using the pop distribution with Guild, and you're using the monetization part of it. And actually, when I started researching about the monetization, and I asked around, I asked even the pop team, like if they have any, like tips and tricks, the best advices, and they just told me like, you should check out how the Zerion is doing it, the Zerion team. So big shout out to you guys, because even the pop team is telling me to check out what you are doing. And what I saw on your server is you have different kind of like plans for the future, like how you are going to, use these funds and all these things. And what are these plans? What do you have in mind?
Yeah, really happy to hear that. I wish Nawal was here. He's out of office right now, but he's really the person in our team who manages pop distribution. But we'll definitely let him know because he's doing an awesome job, and I'm just really glad to hear that even in the POAP team sees that and knows that. Yeah, we do indeed have the community funds, and we are really. Oh, sorry. We've been looking for ways to, to make sure that the community is involved when it comes to it. Because if you look at the fund itself, it's just been used for fund accumulation. We haven't really had any large, programs run based on it or anything like that. So right now we're really looking into how we can use it. So like we don't want to, make a decision and then make the community go with it. It's more about like we have this amount, and then we have our community. So we want the community to like sort of tell us what they want to do and what they want to see, and we might not necessarily be able to implement everything, but we'll definitely try to do what we can do, and make the community happy and get the community involved. This doesn't really answer your question, but I think that comes down to the fact that we really haven't done much with the fund yet. It's more about figuring out the next steps and being also rather careful with it, because it's the community that owns the fund. It's what the fund is dedicated to. So we really want to make sure that we do something valuable and meaningful with it.
Yeah, I think you kind of, hit the nail on the head. Something to add here is also like, if you take a step back, like, why is the community fund even relevant, right? And I feel like for me, the answer has always been like a big part of a community is, there's so many communities now that like, how do you as a user putting yourself in your community member's shoes to decide which community you want to stay with? And I feel like a lot of times the communities are those that have a clear leveling up mechanism, right? Like, Hannah, I'm sure you've seen this where like over time you promote people to certain roles, or you have some ways for them to like contribute more effectively in the chat. And for us, it felt like it was an aha moment where like more recently we used a very small portion of the community fund for a campaign with the Polygon team. I think where, if you staked a certain amount of Matic for like a week, there was almost like a sweepstakes. And the principle there is that anything that we do with this fund would be something where anyone in the community, regardless of their position, is able to like essentially benefit from it. And I think we had a good learning from that where, hey, you could use this for some sort of like a, protocol partnership if you wanted to, but you should make sure that anyone is eligible to participate. But I think more increasingly in the future, we're very interested in bounties, like, essentially what would it look like, using this for educating the community, for creating content, for, sort of helping with plugins and adapters around our SDKs or APIs. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. And obviously, our goal is not to like, sort of fleece as much of like a community revenue as possible. This is not something that we even count as like, company revenue, just because there's different, sort of aspects to our product, be it trading volumes or the API that we generate revenue from. So I think, yeah, being very like focused on that principle has actually helped us, the more we sort of communicate that to our community, in, them also willingly wanting to contribute to, pull-ups or to like kind of, helping fund it and then eventually claim, their sort of paid money back from dispatch. So I think, yeah, it's a fine line of like, you want to encourage participation, but you don't want it to be very like, sort of incentivized by something else. That's been a learning, but like Gleb said, I think Narwhal has a lot of that detailed context, just really sort of being very close in touch with the pull-up team and also increasing the quality of our pull-ups for sure. Where we've now used like more dynamic images and visuals for the pull-ups rather than sort of the basic pull-up JPEGs that you're more used to seeing.
I love how you just said, how you just had in your answer how community oriented you are. And actually, I love it, like how you are asking your own community, like what they want, like what they want to have this fund to go for, like what kind of like options, like, ideas they have. For example, we had kind of a similar situation in our community back then when someone asked me, like, okay, like the quiz night was happening. He just won something. And he was asking me, like, what is his reward? And actually, I started panicking. I was like, oh my God, I didn't have any, like, reward in mind. I was like, you're going to have the POP for participating or anything like this. And the best thing that I did, for example, was to ask him. Like, I asked, like, okay, like, what would you like to have as a reward? And he just told me he just wants to have a Discord role that's shown that like he's a winner. So sometimes us as community managers or like admins and mods, we have so many things in our mind, and sometimes I think, it's my personal opinion, we cannot see the forest from the trees. Like maybe they have such an easy but such an amazing idea in their heads. So this is definitely something which is appreciable, that to ask and to listen your own community, because they are the ones who know best like what they want to see. And then of course like you can evaluate and all these things.
Yeah, that's definitely on point. And I actually really love the story that you shared because it really shows that sometimes the easiest way to figure something out is just to ask the community what they think about it or what they want to see, and that's what we also always do. We just try to if we have questions or want the community to do something, we just ask them, and it really works really well every time.
I'm really curious about this question I had in mind to ask you. It's more about yourself, your journey in Web3. I'm really curious, like, what would you say? Like, what have you learned? Like, what is the biggest lesson that you learned on your journey that, like, had the biggest impact on you since kickstarting in Web3 or in Zerion?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. I'd say Web3 really is so different because it has good vibes. So I think like whatever I do, I really feel comfortable when the vibe is good, and that's also what really makes Zerion stand out in my opinion. Because like the way we are with the community is also the way we are internally. So like all that all that friendliness we have is genuine. It also really comes from everyone in the company as well. Even if someone is a dev and they don't talk to the community all that much or at all, they are also a good person. They are also a pleasure to. I mean, it's always a pleasure to communicate with them as well. So it's really about the atmosphere, whether it is a Web3 protocol, whether it is a Discord server, whether it is this Discord event. It's really if the vibe is good, then everything is going to be all right. And I'm just really glad that I get to work with Abi, and because he really knows how to make things right and how to manage the community team to make sure that we are happy and we have all we need. So, and the company in general, like we always really feel that, you know, everyone cares for one another. And I think if we just extrapolate this to the space as a whole, I think that's the most important thing, like treating everyone good and making sure that, you know, the atmosphere is good as well.
+1 on that one, for sure. Abby, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think he more or less sort of mentioned most of it. I feel like that the DNA of the team really often resonates with how the community perceives you, right? Like a team that's, you know, like this is one of those things where we have to be real as well. Like a community role is a role that oftentimes has, a very undefined context. And you can see a lot of times teams that are very overworked or like, have unrealistic SLAs to hit. And as a team, don't represent the sort of vibes or the, actual sort of brand value that you want to show off. So I think in that sense, Gleb kind of just, mentioned it pretty well. Like you've got to have a team where everyone's willing to go above and beyond, but also go above and beyond for helping each other out when needed. I feel like that's one of those things where like we've seen that in our community as well. Like a quick example is, we translated Zerion into like 9 different languages in the early days, all community sourced. This was in 2020 and 2021, all for free, just using, a couple extra integrations. And people were so enthusiastic to do that, right? Those were periods where everyone in the space, like literally everyone, including Vitalik, was like one Telegram or Discord DM away. So the kind of value that we've kind of always wanted to build, even internally, I keep, trying to foster this as well, is like, hey, like we're doing this for a bigger mission, not to like, oh, like make, Zerion $1 billion company or whatever, but rather to like just spread the adoption of Web3 and like wallets and infrastructure to, the masses. That's something that I think is more of a fundamental thing where, we try to instill that. We see people from all over the world in our community and, same like kind of how guilds are structured as well. I think more recently as well, like we've had fully volunteer community moderators, from, China, from like a lot of different regions, sort of managing and spreading sort of awareness there as well. A lot of this is almost priceless. You can't, really sort of trace the origins or like see how it evolved, but rather it's very serendipitously where, you're in a Telegram group, someone invited you, you sort of make a friend, and that friend is now interested in like introducing you to another friend. So I feel like what we've done really is try to like foster this environment where serendipity is, almost the essence of what grows your community. And anything beyond that, obviously, we try to track, be it like how happy users are after talking to like a support agent, or like, what is the sort of percentage of connected wallet users connecting, to Guild, who hold like a, Zerion DNA. I think a lot of those insights definitely help as well, sort of foster this serendipity more.
+1 on the metrics, on the insights. I think us as like community leads and community managers, this is one of the biggest issue that we are facing with, especially if we are, working on Discord, is Discord insights are not enough. And what is really, really hard is to measure like how happy our community is. So there's an extra point on that one. We are trying to figure it out and working on different kind of solutions to see and represent like what we are achieving in the community. In the meantime, thank you so much for all the answers that you've given me. In the meantime, I asked the stage chat whether they have any questions. So if you still have time, if we are good to go with the time, I'll ask some. What do you think?
Bring it on. I'm happy to do this.
Awesome.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay. So the first question is, do you have a governance process around the community fund? Like, we kind of touched on this, like what are the plans and what are the initiatives, but do you have a whole like governance process, or how does it work?
Short answer is no, as far as I know. And the main reason being, I guess as a product, we don't have a token. We haven't established a big governance process. But honestly, very open to hearing about ideas where kind of like this will be more relevant. And again, I think the reason why we don't have a governance process is not because we, don't involve the community in full decision making, but it's also because, if we say had a token or we were a product with a different structure, that would make a lot of sense. You want to have governance in the community to decide a lot of like decisions. But currently, I think anything that we do, it's almost like consulted with user research with the community, but it's also like communicated transparently and the benefits accrue to them back. Yeah, I don't know if Gleb has something to add here.
Yeah, I think you actually nailed it, Abby. Yeah, I don't really have much to add apart from the fact that we are looking into ways of, maybe simplifying, the way that people can share their feedback or proposals. But as of now, if someone has an idea for a fund or just, any idea in general, they're welcome to share it, and we'll see, what can be done about it.
Super, thank you so much. The next question is, we kind of touched on this. I'm really curious, like, to hear more about it. What's the main measurable goal for your community in 2023?
Yeah, good question. I was actually on a call with our CEO right before this where we talked about it. We're still determining a lot of this, but I think our company's North Star metric is weekly active wallets, right? So weekly active funded wallets. So an interesting goal that we were looking at is obviously like, we can track the Zerion DNA holders connected to our community, which is great. But I think the retention of the community, so essentially how many community members who've newly onboarded end up retaining and participating over time, as well as like how many of those sort of tracing back their wallet sort of activity. The hypothesis here is that more active community members and folks who are like beyond just our app, also interacting with other elements of like the product, would be more likely to be like both like higher lifetime value users and get a lot more benefits out of this. So that's sort of like one that we are formulating. I mean, obviously open to your suggestions as well, Anna, and sort of like what metrics y'all keep track of. But that retention element is something that we're looking to track a lot.
Super, thank you so much. You just mentioned the DNA NFT, and we just got another question about it. Luis is interested in how have the DNA NFTs helped you to build a community? Like what kind of, like, have you ever experienced any, extra effect that it had on your community? And even with like engagement or anything like this? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. I'd say Zerion DNA really changed the way people see Zerion. It's just like added a lot more, personality to the wallet, if that makes sense. So it's not just, yet another wallet. It's a wallet that you can, almost see evolve. Like create a DNA and then you transact using Zerion, and then you see change, and it's really awesome. And I think it also did a lot to just show people that Web3 doesn't have to be complicated, and that it's actually a pleasure to work with. And that kind of really, I think, then evolved into people sticking around, as Abby said, our retention, like retaining the existing community members and making sure that they are, they're more active day after day and week after week as a goal. And I think Zerion DNA really helps with that as well. We have a few roles for DNA holders, and we do, we had Noble make them for us. So yeah, I mean, really, it's just about how people see the world. And I think when people see something that changes, something that they can influence directly, and something that also looks awesome, like Zerion DNA, it just really makes them feel like like they belong, and it also makes the community feel better, just because they can do something fun they can't do anywhere else.
Actually, about the DNA NFT, you even just got a suggestion. I'm gonna just read it as ending off. We're ending with the Q&A section. There was a suggestion to consider DNA NFTs as vote power before token launch. So I would definitely take a look at the stage chat and read more, because there are some extra things that our community members just suggested or told you. And even I can see that like there are more questions, but I just want to wrap it up here so we're not, going more than 1 hour. Thank you so much for everyone for being here, and thank you so much, Gleb and Abby, for being our special guests on stage. I just want to ask, as the final, like, do you have anything else that you would like to share? Even like how they can learn more, how they can join your community, or something like this.
Sure, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I think the two fastest ways to learn about, Zerion in general and, the DNA NFT is by going to Zerion.io or by going to Zerion.io/DNA and then just like reading through that. We have a Discord link. Join our server. We'll be happy to onboard you. That's really the best way. And if you're a dev, feel free to ping us in the server. We'll be happy to share our API docs and onboard you to the API as well.
Thanks for facilitating, Hannah. This is great. Also, helped us think through more questions. I think there's always, it's always good to have more questions than answers, just to keep yourselves also motivated. So we're happy to follow up with you as well separately on, some of the questions you asked. And, we've been happy with the integration. I think things have been working really well lately. So excited to see, both our teams ship more features. That would be fun.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think these community stand-ups, community calls are a really great place, just to have a public brainstorming and hear like how the others are doing so we can get some inspiration and we can learn from each other.